GPU hammer time, cloud native security, slow AI coding, the FCC resale shenanigans continue, Akka's Agentic AI, somebody got swept up in a typhoon, Google goes windsurfing, and we have some new reports from the Futurum group in this week's episode of the Tech Field Day Rundown. Hello, everyone. Welcome to this episode of the Tech Field Day Rundown. It is July 16th. Are the Ides of July a thing? I don't think they are. We could ask Caesar, but of course, he's too busy making salads and whatever else that he does. What you should be doing, though, is checking out this wonderful edition of the Rundown, because I wish I was kidding. It really is National AI Day. So how's that different from the other 364 days a year? Well, this time you actually have to get AI a gift. I recommend something in the electrical variety. But one thing that is never shocking is the intelligence and charisma of my amazing co-host, Mr. Alistair Cook. Al, welcome to the show.
It is truly hard to be shocked by the completely absent. Thank you, Tom. It is a delight to be here with you on National Personal Chef Day. And hopefully your personal chef is going to make some nice dish for your AI in order that our future AI overlords look kindly upon us.
Yes, they should, because we always talk so highly of them here on the Rundown and would never hope that they would troll the internet video archives to punish us in the future. Well, that being said, let's jump into the episode, because things may not be looking so rosy for AI right now. That's because Rowhammer is back. Yeah, that's not the one that 4 uses. Instead, this is a huge CPU exploit. Well, guess what? It's not just a CPU exploit anymore, because it has been demonstrated to be effective on the NVIDIA RTX A6000 GPU. That means that you could potentially lead AI models on that GPU to produce inaccurate results. The research team that found this little jewel said that the effect of the attack was like giving a GPU catastrophic brain damage, which is kind of how I feel when I have to read another AI story. This thing, though, it's only possible in a research lab, right? Al, there's no way that someone could potentially give my AI application brain damage, right?
Sure, we'll tell ourselves that. And that's the thing. This has only been done in a research lab. However, Rowhammer is really well known. I mean, CPU Rowhammer has been a known thing for some time. The ability to attack one section of the memory within a physical server and have that cause a bit flip, a corruption in the data in another section of memory. The mitigation for this has always been error correction, and preferably multi-bit error correction, so that if a single bit or a couple of bits get flipped, you can correct that because you've stored additional data. Now, the problem with storing that additional data, that error correction data, is it takes up more space, and then computing the actual error correction codes on a regular basis also adds more load to the CPU to do these functions. So there's protection against it, and it's going to come at an expense. So who needs that protection? Rowhammer and now GPU Hammer, which is the name of the script that they used here, these are most dangerous on places of mixed trust. So places where you have some high trust applications using exactly the same physical hardware as applications you don't trust. I'd categorize that as public cloud. Another tenant could be right alongside your workload. Now, their ability to know that you're alongside their workload is pretty limited, but their ability to damage your workload is less limited than possibly we thought it was before. So I think we'll see some moves towards more dedicated hardware for this. If I am controlling all of the workload that's on a specific GPU as well as its associated CPU, I'm much less exposed to some sort of behavior that another tenant is doing. So this doesn't necessarily mean that everything has to come back to on-premises to mitigate this. A couple of techniques: if you're staying with multi-tenancy, then use a multi-tenancy that uses error correction code in the memory. And then the other mitigation is to use dedicated hardware actually on the cloud rather than using multi-tenant hardware. Is this something that an attacker could use as a way of doing a distributed denial of service against your application, right? Giving your AI application brain damage because it's running right alongside it. Yes, technically could happen. In fact, it's more likely to happen on premises, because then the attacker knows what applications residing on the same GPUs and CPUs. it's less likely that you would be the target of an attack on public cloud since there's less of that awareness. But you could just be unlucky that some person of questionable character is experimenting with this on an adjacent GPU, or is just has been compromised by somebody who just means the world ill, who just wants to see the world burn. Should you be worried about it? Yes, you should be aware that this is a possibility and that it really does tank the results of your AI application. One of the things they said is they benchmarked the accuracy of the results of an AI model that is running adjacent to this GPU hammer, and it went from having a 99% accuracy to having a 0.1% accuracy. It really is that sort of catastrophic brain damage that we definitely don't want in our application. So, yeah, the impacts are pretty severe. The probability of being affected by it is fairly low. To protect yourself against all kinds of unpleasantness, some sort of cloud-native security fabric might be very useful. Aviatrix is building just this to simplify and cut cloud cybersecurity costs by enabling real-time policy enforcement as well as traffic encryption. This approach aims to fix current challenges with outdated tools and security gaps across multiple clouds. How important do you think it is to have these cloud-native solutions across multiple clouds, Tom?
So let me ask you this question. How would you configure an access list on a Palo Alto firewall to restrict all inbound traffic from a certain geolocation IP? Now, I need you to translate that into AWS, Azure, Oracle, and Google. Too late. If you didn't already immediately know how to do that, you've been violated and breached, and you're going to be in the news. Sorry, that sucks. One of the reasons why we have such a hard time securing workloads in the cloud is because the way that our tooling operates is very much stuck in a bastion host on premises methodology. And that doesn't work in the cloud, folks. You cannot secure things VPC by VPC. Well, it's like, remember the old days of managing things server by server by server? Some of you probably are wistfully looking off into the distance. Oh yeah, the good old days, as you, I don't know, puff on an old pipe and complain that your joints are getting creaky because the weather's changing outside. Anyone under the age of 50 is going to go, no, it's horrifying to think about managing things server by server. That's why we invented virtualization, containers, so many other things. The same thing applies to security, and even more so because security rapidly evolves. So you've got to be on top of those things. And I think what Aviatrix is building here, a cloud native fabric that spans multiple clouds, is absolutely critical because it means that you only have to build your policies once. And then when you tell the system to deploy those policies across whatever clouds you're using, that means that you don't have to worry about all those translation mechanisms. What did Amazon call it? No, crap. What does Microsoft call it? Is it the same direction? Does it apply at the same location? It's all taken care of for you. And when your executive comes back from their latest meeting and gets told, oh, we need to be in this other cloud now because they're great for insert inane reason that salesperson told them here. Now you just click a couple of buttons in the Aviatrix Cloud Native Security Fabric, and you can be secure by default over there instead of scratching your head for a few hours trying to figure out how they do an object contract policy model remediation. Yeah, I'm already lost. So bravo to the folks from Aviatrix for taking a look at this. You may have seen them previously at field day events in the past, Cloud Field Day, Networking Field Day. We'd love to see them at Security Field Day to talk about this. So, Aviatrix, we'd love to get an opportunity to check that out. We do offer Security Field Day events throughout the year. You've probably heard about AI helping you code things. Well, someone actually did the math, and they did a study of 16 experienced developers that have completed hundreds of coding tasks, and they found that having an AI coding assistant is making these developers less productive. The developers believed they were nearly 20% more productive with assistants like Cursor Pro or Anthropic's Claude. However, the study found the exact opposite, that tasks took 20% longer to complete using the AI. I guess the question that I have to ask, Al, is AI the new Clippy?
Well, that's an interesting parallel because, Cliffy didn't do a heck of a lot for us, but he certainly took a lot of our attention. And that's what we're seeing here is that these AI coding assistants are more useful than Clippy. but they are taking a lot of attention. So this specifically was some senior experienced developers working on open source projects, working through about 260 different tasks. And the developers themselves, as you said, they've reported somewhere around 19 to 20% more productivity, felt productivity, than without using the AI tool, yet it took them 20% longer to complete that productivity, which doesn't sound like greater productivity to me. The study looked a little bit deeper. One of the things was that these developers spent a lot of time reviewing what AI had provided them as code, as well as spending a lot of time crafting the prompts to get AI to give them what they wanted. And so it feels like there's still an awful lot of work that needs to be done to get assistance from your assistant. But I should caveat, though, that these were some experienced developers, and so they knew what they were working with. They knew the environment. They knew the tools that they were using. So one of the use cases for these AI assistants is to speed up the training of less senior developers, make it easier to work with things you're less familiar with. And I suspect the results would have been better in that use case. So making software development more accessible for junior developers and people who are just starting out, I think is the place where these coding assistants are very useful at the moment. I think we're a little way away from these coding assistants being an expert programmer and making expert programmers more productive. That's definitely the direction they're heading for, but the study suggests that we're not anywhere near there yet. They also tell us that we're not very good at judging our own productivity. A new law restores the FCC's authority to auction spectrum and requires at least 800 megahertz be sold, potentially pulling it from the 6 gigahertz and CBRS bands currently used by Wi-Fi and rural broadband providers. While mobile carriers like AT&T and Verizon support the move to give them more bandwidth, for 5G expansion, critics warn it could slow your Wi-Fi and harm small ISPs that rely on these bands. The law reverses earlier efforts to protect 6 gigahertz for unlicensed use and reflects growing pressure from the wireless industry, now backed by former FCC Ajit Pai, who leads a major telecom lobby. Tom, 800 megahertz, is that a lot of bandwidth to pull out of these bands, or is it just a rounding error?
It's only a flesh wound. How bad could it be? It's not like the 6 gigahertz spectrum is 1200 megahertz in width. Oh, wait, that's exactly how big it is. Yeah. My political soapbox for this little story is probably going to be more like one of those CrossFit box jumps that's like 5 feet tall. So allow me to elaborate on that. We opened up these two bands, and we opened them up under extreme pressure from lobbying groups. The first band, of course, was CBRS, where you probably heard of this for things like IoT or for warehouse locations that are not well suited to Wi-Fi that need large coverage for devices. And we had to play with some certain rules. The CBRS band is lightly licensed, which means that there are people who can buy a license in that band, and then they can operate in that band. And then if you're trampling all over their license, you have to move. So there's the ability to operate unlicensed in that band. Then we have the 6 gigahertz band. And this is an interesting story. The short version is that when they were doing all the original surveys, they got a lot of feedback from satellite download providers and from telecom companies who said, oh, we need way more studies before we can let you use this. And the incumbent Wi-Fi companies like Aruba and Cisco said, no, you don't. We've proven that it doesn't actually interfere with anything and there's no problems and you should open it up. And they did under Ajit Pai when he was the FCC chairperson. And then we come to this year when someone snuck a little rider into the bill that was passed. It was neither big nor beautiful. It was kind of a pain in the neck. Among other things, like trying to repurpose the Space Shuttle Discovery to Houston. They also said, well, remember those things that we set aside for everyone to be able to use Wi-Fi? Yeah, we would like to sell those to somebody now. Well, who was the first group of people lining up at the door, cup in hand, ready to pay for the thing that they claimed they needed more time to sort out? That's right. It's the telecom providers. And who's the lobbyists for the lobbying group that's working on behalf of them? Oh, that would be the same person who opened that spectrum up a few years ago, who got fired or was departed from the FCC and got himself a nice cushioning lobbying job. Hopefully he's drinking out of a 55-gallon drum instead of that comically oversized coffee cup that he loved to put on TV so much. This isn't about coffee. This is about going back on a promise that said that we're going to give you this band to expand, because if you think that the telecom providers are having a problem finding spectrum in 5G, one, you've obviously never been in 2.4 gigahertz recently, because that's a trash band if I've ever saw it. And two, it's funny that that's what they're telling the government, because what they're telling the investors is, oh, we got plenty of room to expand. This won't be a problem. Please don't let the stock price dip because we lied to you. That's really weird. It's almost like they're talking out of both sides of their mouth, which honestly is not something I should be surprised about, because this is a political discussion. If you want to know why Ajit Pai was so ready to say that 6 gigahertz isn't being well utilized, maybe you could go back to the FCC and ask them about why they had so many crazy rules in place that wouldn't allow 6 gigahertz operations outdoors without the AFC databases being brought online and having tons of studies done before you would even light it up. And oh my God, if you ever get a radar hit in an airport, we got to shut this thing down for 6 months to figure out why the airport radar systems are so comically backwards that they don't operate well with anything, because that was another group of people that kept saying that they can't operate in those bands. And guess who was the other group behind the airports trying to get 6 gigahertz shut down? That's right, it was AT&T and Verizon. So you'll have to excuse me if I think that maybe the motto of the US government should not be, why do we give away things we could sell to people? Do better, guys, and quit trying to sneak these things into must-pass bills, because if you don't, well, who knows what might happen the next time somebody is in office who actually understands how technology works. There, I'm going to jump down off my soapbox now. Let's talk about something more fun, because Akka has unveiled a new suite of integrated tools that they're calling Akka Orchestration, Akka Agents, Akka Memory, and Akka Streaming, which is designed to speed up the creation of agentic AI systems. The platform promises 3 times the performance and just 1/3 of the compute cost, with the support of a wide range of applications, from autonomous and adaptive systems to real-time and edge use cases. Developed in close collaboration with customers who are managing massive AI workloads, some of those are exceeding over 1 billion, that's with a B, tokens per second. The new offerings are now available to all existing Akka license holders. A live demo and deep dive are going to be scheduled for a webinar tomorrow. Al, what has you excited about Akka's new lineup?
Well, for a start, you got to put this in a context of what Akka is. Akka is, well, it's a company, but it's also a framework for building distributed applications. And it's that basis of, we've got a distributed application framework, and what feature set do people want to add to their distributed applications? AI, and particularly in a distributed architecture, agentic AI. This is where the AI takes some input, does some action, and then produces some next step in the process. And often we're expecting to be seeing one agent talking to another agent. And these agentic AI in some ways is like the microservices version of AI, where the microservices talk to one another while these AI agents talk to one another. Each one achieves some small task, but together they achieve a much larger task. So having this capability as a platform that you don't have to build yourself all the way from the ground up, as here's a set of capabilities, a set of libraries that you can use to build an agentic AI application. And they're using all of the right acronyms in here, like MCP, and having really nice API integrations for this, the ability to tie these things together in large scale. This looks really cool. So having orchestration of an entire workflow that might go through multiple different AI agents, running those agents themselves, through HTTP APIs for the agents themselves. One of the nice things is separating out a section called Akka Memory. This is the ability to persist all of the context information that's associated with a particular query or a particular sequence of queries or discussions that are happening between these agents, transferring that context information from agent to agent and persisting it over a long time is going to be absolutely vital in here. Some nice, interesting things about streaming in here. So streaming data rather than just transactional data. Streaming data methodologies for driving in, having this stream of data coming in, triggering the agents to run and get some insights from these individual units of data streaming in. Again, we've got this Akka platform that allows you to build large, complex applications at, to say, billions of tokens per second, billions of tokens per second, as we're getting these big applications running through. I think this is really cool. I think this is going to be incredibly useful for building out these large applications, or more likely, adding agentic AI features to the large applications you're already building with Akka. All right, Tom, are you ready for your soapbox again? Actually, I don't think this one's going to be the soapbox. I think you're just going to be frothing at the mouth with joy on this one. US officials want to extradite Zhu Zui. A Chinese man arrested in Italy working for the Silk Typhoon, a Chinese government-backed hacking group. He's accused of helping steal COVID-19 research from US universities and joining the 2021 Microsoft Exchange server attack. Prosecutors say he was following his orders from Chinese intelligence to steal sensitive data. His family and lawyer say he's innocent and may have been hacked himself. Experts say the arrest is a rare win, that Silk Typhoon's cyber spying is still likely to continue, isn't it, Tom?
It is. And the reason why is because, as we all surmise, the people backing the Typhoon groups are well connected and are basically training people to kind of accomplish things that they could get in trouble for otherwise. And unlike Elmo this week, I don't think our friend here was hacked. I think that it was quite the opposite, that he was on the producing side of that. And again, this is all alleged. This is, what's happening. But what's important here is the fact that this was an arrest made in Italy on behalf of the US government that immediately filed for extradition. They want somebody to hang this on. Yes, stealing COVID research data 5 years ago, bad. Microsoft really wants to hang the Exchange hack on them. But here's why it's important. Because if you remember, the other Typhoon group, Salt Typhoon, was responsible for a massive hacking campaign just last year that hit a lot of people that are currently in power. And they have the potential to be embarrassed at the comically inappropriate time, like during a negotiation with a foreign power over trade deals, for example. And I think that this is trying to send a message to a group that allegedly is state-sponsored. Knock it off, quit hacking us, or we'll start arresting your people in every country in the world, at least the ones that we have extradition treaties for. Now, the question is, does this cause the Typhoon groups to back off of certain campaigns, or does it cause them to escalate? Well, if you're going to threaten me, I'm going to get enough blackmail to threaten you right back. I don't have a good answer for that because we have never seen hacking on this scale with this many involved people. And honestly, I don't think one person is going to turn that tide, especially if they can't get them out of Italy. Because as we've seen, the Chinese government can be very, very convincing when they want to keep one of their nationals out of an unfriendly country where they could potentially be prosecuted for something that, quite honestly, the Chinese government doesn't think is a crime, or at least the way that it was directed. Or maybe they cut him loose. I don't know. Maybe they're like, yeah, you can get your sacrificial lamb, and while you're busy putting him on trial, we're going to steal a whole bunch of other stuff. Folks, the Typhoon thing isn't going away anytime soon. If anything, I expect to see 4 more Typhoon groups come up out of this, and they're all going to be named some other kind of element that will eventually form the Typhoon Megazord, and then we're going to have a kaiju battle on our hands, and it's going to get real entertaining. So make sure you stay tuned because this one's about to get juicy, folks. OpenAI has been buying everything that's not nailed down, but they missed out on something because the $3 billion deal they had to buy AI startup Windsurf collapsed. So guess what happened? Google quickly hired Windsurf CEO, co-founder, and a whole bunch of other staff to its DeepMind team focused on agentic coding. Google also got themselves a nice little license to use some of Windsurf's technology. However, it doesn't own the company. It just owns most of the people who work there. Failed deal comes among growing tensions between OpenAI and their daddy Microsoft, who it's highlighting the fact that there's fierce competitions among tech giants to be the leader in AI coding. Experts say that OpenAI is facing challenges while rivals like Google and Anthropic are able to move faster in this space and potentially challenge to take the crown. Al, did Google get themselves a real win by effectively buying everything from Windsurf but the name?
It feels like that, doesn't it? And you take the CEO, you take co-founder, you grab some of the. Well, apparently Windsurf had 250 staff, and most of them are still there. But if you pulled the guys out at the top, the founders, the people who had the foundational knowledge for this, how much is left? It's an interesting thought. Uh, Google is also not saying how much this cost to pull these people in. You can imagine that when the current massive demand for skills around building AI applications, that these people are demanding pretty serious amounts of compensation. That $3 billion is probably a little more. The $3 billion OpenAI was going to spend is probably a little more than the salaries that these people are getting from Google, but maybe just the joining bonus will be up there. So it'll be interesting to see what's left of Windsurf, how long and how far Windsurf continues. They are formerly known as Codium and are a provider of AI coding assistance. You may recall my earlier story on AI coding assistance. Definitely good to see the Google team making commitments to getting hold of some more great skills to add to their existing amazing skills, and the DeepMind team building all of the AI engines and building some pretty cool technology within Google there. Does this mean that OpenAI is going to sort of fall off a little bit and not succeed so well? A little too early to say. It is definitely a fractious relationship between the various players here, because whoever builds the best generative AI foundation model is going to be in a position to license those models out to the commercial organizations that are going to build AI applications. Commercial organizations aren't going to build foundation models. They're going to fine-tune those foundation models that they've licensed, or they're going to use techniques like retrieval augmented generation to get some business awareness to those foundation models. But it is ridiculously expensive to build a foundation model, and so it's high-stakes fights between the various people who are building these foundation models. Be interesting to watch this from the sidelines with a big bucket of popcorn and a nice cold drink. New report from the Futurum group, of course, our great friends, and let me try that again. A new report from the Futurum group highlights some big news in the data intelligence space. The global data intelligence, analytics, and infrastructure (DIAI) market is projected to grow significantly, more than doubling from $409 billion to $876 billion, going from 2024 to 2029. That's a 16.5% compound annual growth rate, according to our Futurum Group study. Futurum Intelligence is an awesome part of the wider Futurum Group, which of course includes Tech Field Day. This surge in the DIAI is primarily driven by the accelerated integration of AI into enterprise data infrastructure, making data a crucial investment for future-proofing businesses through AI-driven automation and real-time decision-making. Tom, growth in storage is unsurprising. Is this something slightly different?
It is a little bit different. And normally I'd say, more data, people are munging through it. That's one thing. But when you look at the fact that this is literally what AI runs off of, like you'd be crazy not to think about that. Look, the data intelligence, that is the raw materials that your algorithms, your models are running on. And running AI without good data intelligence is a lot like buying a Ferrari and then parking it in your driveway. If you don't have the place to run it, why have it? And look at all the things that go around this. I mean, we've been talking about this for over 10 years. Remember, we used to do data field day. And now that we've kind of come to where we're at with AI, it's like the new data field day. And yeah, I get it. Everything old is new again. But more importantly, what people need to understand is that everything that surrounds AI is growing at a rapid rate. I mean, look at the number of news stories that we've done already this year about power consumption. Like the electricity market is doing gangbuster business. If we can figure out a way to do cold fusion, I mean, AI will eat it up. But more importantly, what is the other thing you got to think about is like the data inputs are going to be growing. And how do you store those? Because I promise you, AI hates unstructured data. You've got to be able to look it up in a table. You got to be able to index it. You got to be able to do all of these things. And that means that organizations who have historically done a terrible job of holding onto that data are going to try to find a better way to do it. And that means they're going to be investing in all of these things. It's like cleaning up your house before you buy new furniture, right? We want it to be good. We want everything to be ready so that when we get the new stuff in here, we don't need to clean around it. And one of the things that all of the great people over at the Futurum Group have done is they have put together the numbers, one of those amazing reports that is easy to read, easy to consume, and can give you an idea of where the growth areas are and what people are using it for. And don't forget that you can head over to the Futurum Intelligence platform. And if you're already a customer, you can download this. If you're not, you can sign up and get access to it. The link to the blog post with the announcement there where you can get all the information that you need. So congratulations to that team for putting out an amazing report. I think that it's really going to help people understand not just where growth is in AI, but all of those satellite industries, right? Like when you see like a neighborhood being built, what's your first thought? I need to put a Walgreens here somewhere because somebody is going to need to go to the drugstore sooner or later. That's what we're talking about here. Folks, we didn't have time for a closer look this week because we had so many stories we had to cover that, we just wanted to make sure that you knew everything that was going on. Just like we want to let you know everything that's going on in the world of Tech Field Day because that's what's near and dear to our hearts. The next thing coming up is actually in just about a month. We're going to be Tech Field Day Extra at Share Cleveland. That's right. Stephen Foskett is back, and he's going to be having some great presentations from an amazing lineup of presenters. You can find more information about them on the Tech Field Day website. And I'm sure that Stephen's going to have a little promo coming out pretty soon with a list of who's going to be presenting, as well as a fun little podcast that you're not going to want to miss. But coming up after that is Mr. Alistair Cook. You're back in the U.S. for some fun, aren't you?
I am. I'll have a little bit further of a commute than Stephen does getting up to Cleveland. I'll be back for AI infrastructure field in the San Francisco area. It's going to be fun. We're going to have Broadcom and Satera and Hammerspace and Mirantis all turning up for that one, plus a few more that will be added. If it's going to be anything like the last AI infrastructure field day, there'll be a lot at this event. Of course, a couple of weeks after AI infrastructure field day is security field day. That's a Tom event.
It is a Tom event. And, we talked a lot about security in this presentation lineup. We had a lot of great stories about security. Think about all the ones that we've had so far. We got some cool stuff coming up that you're going to want to talk about. And I actually wrote a blog post about one of the companies we got presenting, SecureX. But more importantly, we'd love to see more great companies. I talked about Aviatrix here, but we'd love to see some of the data protection companies out there. We'd love to see some of the companies doing endpoint security, XDR, whatever. We want to open it up to as many people as possible because we want you to get a full understanding of what goes on in security. There's more to it than just changing your password every 30, 60, 90 days, whatever it is. So make sure you tune in September 24th and 25th. Consider it a birthday present to me because my birthday is that week. And I would love to be able to celebrate with a very full event and cake. Mostly a full event because I don't need any more cake. But what you need is more of us on the rundown every week. You know where to find us. We're here on Wednesdays. We publish our videos in the afternoon so you can drink that afternoon cup of coffee, stretch out, and hear us wax intellectual about the news. But more importantly, you can listen to us in audio podcast format. Maybe you're stuck on a long commute and you need something to pass the time, and you want to listen to the dulcet tones of the Kiwi and the nerd talk all about all of the stuff that happened this week. Well, if you do that, just search for Tech Field Day Rundown. I actually told someone who's not in tech about that yesterday. So, Kristen, if you're listening, I hope that you enjoyed this little shout out, and I hope that this didn't bore you to death because I know that tech isn't your primary job. You're just doing this because you think I'm cool. Let's be fair, nobody thinks I'm cool. But we think you're cool, and we love that you are part of what we do here at Tech Field Day and on the Rundown. We hope that you tune in for all of our events, but more importantly, we hope that you're back next week for the Rundown. Like, share, leave a comment, let people know what we're all about because that's how we get more listeners, and we want to hear from them, from you, from everybody. Thanks for tuning in. I know it's the summer. At least up north, it's the summer. Down south, it's the winter. Stay warm or cold as appropriate. And we'll see you next week for another great episode of The Rundown.